All right, we are live. So thank you to all who are joining us now and or are about to join us. Make sure when you come in here to let me know that you're here because always great to see familiar faces. My dog is currently trying to play with a little toy under my feet here. So Huckleberry will probably make an appearance just generally in this video. So my name is Billy. I am the Vice President of Nutrition and Communication for Green Juju, and Green Juju is a company that strives to make all diets better. So we make whole food supplements because whole foods are, the body knows how to break them down better than individual chemicals, and all dogs need variants and fresh foods in their diets. Come on, buddy. Sorry. So let me know if you guys are here, and also, obviously, you guys can understand that I'm having a hi, buddy. Okay, so let me know if you want to see Huckleberry because he is a current monster. But Green Juju is here in service of all pets. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about today is, I don't know why it's telling me my frame rate is too slow. So let me know if there's an issue on your guys' end. We are going to talk about our new product. So let me start saying hi to some people, and then we can kind of go from there. Hi to Christine and Julia and Suki over there in Nebraska, and also Jerry in Connecticut. So very nice to see a lot of people from different parts of the country. So thank you for coming by. And also keep in mind too that these lives are always on our there he is. So you can keep in mind that these lives are always on our YouTube as well. So something to think about there if you want a reference point, if you miss a live. And while you're there, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube as well. There's a lot of great information. There's training videos. If you're a retail store, there's a lot going on there in regard to that. So while you're there, come and hang out with us. So let's talk about these new, I'm going to be doing this the whole time. Here's the moral of the story, folks. Don't give your dog a toy. Don't throw him a toy right before you're going on a Facebook Live. So in the end, and actually I got this at the Healthy Dog Expo. So whoever makes this is a really great toy. So something to think about. So let's talk about our new products that are just releasing. So very, very proud of both Bam's Beets and Lewis Fermented Golden Paste. So first of all, I want to start about the sort of evolution of these products. So I've been with Green Juju a little bit over a year now. And so, ever since I came here from the very beginning, I was, in service of the original mission of Green Juju, which is, to help get fresh, minimally processed food into every dog's diet. And so one of the things I thought would be really cool was reaching those people who aren't, 100% nutrition based, because their dogs need these foods as well as people like me who are obsessed with nutrition as well. So one of the things that I love about these two products is this is really, me and Kelly coming from zero, Kelly Marion, the owner of the company, coming from, zero to create products together. So I really think that this is like really, 50% her and 50% me in terms of bringing fermentation into, the plant-based realm. So that's really, really exciting on the forefront of that. So I'll kind of, go through and describe what these products are. And if you guys want to put your questions below, because typically towards the end, we always kind of like miss out on some of the questions. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the comment section. Notice some of you are saying hello and commenting on how beautiful Huckleberry is. So that's pretty awesome. So I'm seeing some of your Huckleberry comments, so I will keep that in mind throughout the video here. He's licking my foot currently. So make sure you put your questions below about Bam's Beets and Lewis Fermented Golden Paste. So the first thing to talk about with these products is both of them are wild ferments, which I think is really exciting in the nutrition world and how we look at the gut microbiome and species of probiotics. So all what we're doing here is adding sea salt, red mint salt, which by the way is its own kind of supplement because it's not just sodium. It's has every mineral and trace element essentially that's ever been discovered to bring down the pH. So all the natural probiotics in these products come from the beets, the cabbage, and the turmeric itself. So they come from their soil-based probiotics from the actual foods themselves. And so the cool thing about that is, the different species that you're getting. So probiotics, much like protein and other nutrients as well, it's not always about the amount, it's about how usable they are and how well they set up in the gut. So soil-based probiotics are really good at that. Um, and so the coolest thing maybe about these products in general, because there's a lot of cool things, but I think the coolest thing in general is the fact that you're getting a different set of bacteria or differing amounts of bacteria in every pouch that you use in terms of species. So you can, if you're using a pouch of BAM's Beets, and even from the same batch, another pouch of BAM's Beets, you're going to be getting different species of bacteria in differing amounts, which I think is really cool because there's hundreds of species of probiotics in your dog's gut, and our aim at Green Juju is to inoculate with hundreds of species every day. So you can do that through the milk and these products as well. So that to me is a really cool thing because there's so many connections being made right now about gut health and just whole body health and mental health and in the human realm and a lot of things like that. So that's one of the first really cool things about that. So the second thing is that BAM's Beets is going to be your, and if this is shaking, oh, by the way, this is Huckleberry's fault, so blame him. So I love blaming dogs on a stream of all dog lovers. So, so BAM's Beets is for every dog, in my opinion, every day. It's a really wonderful supplement for a couple different reasons. So you're getting, so it's 50%, so it's equal amounts organic beets and organic purple cabbage. So you're getting, the liver detoxifying aspect of the beets, the vitamin U, the digestive gut lining support from the purple cabbage. You're also getting all of those wonderful antioxidants as well, those deep dark color antioxidants from both of those things, as well as those soil-based, wild probiotics. So this is a great way to combine. This is a great product to combine with our blends because you can inoculate the gut with the BAM's Beets, and then you can go ahead and feed it with our blends. So Just Greens, Bailey's Blend, or Golden Blend. So all these things work synergistically, and they all have different avenues. So you'll notice with our products, it's not like we're like, this is a probiotic. This is a probiotic. This is an antioxidant, supplement. This is vitamins and minerals. Obviously, this is the whole package in one thing there. And we are fermenting this for 7 days. So the other part that's cool about this too is those bacteria eat the sugars. So it's 0 to negligible amounts of sugar in any of these products. You get all those wonderful benefits without the naturally occurring sugars. So very excited about that. Huckleberry, my dog, gets 2 teaspoons of that a day. So that is very exciting. And you do very well on it, don't you, buddy? He's like so pathetic staring at me with his toy right now. So Lua, and obviously, and by the way, I should mention as well, and I'm not just doing this because I know that Kelly's probably watching, but BAM's Beets is named after Bambi, who is Kelly's 12-year-old French bulldog, who for her age is in amazing health. And obviously, Lua's Fermented Golden Paste is near and dear to my heart. This is the whole reason I have a career in the pet food industry was because of my first dog, Lua, who passed away last August. So coming up on a year on that. And this is really my tribute to her and my tribute to her legacy in helping as many dogs as possible. So really, really, really proud of this product and that it came out. And so this is a really cool concept. And what drives me in this industry and what drives Kelly in this industry is new things that we can do to provide really unique ways to help every dog and cat. And so this is going to be an incredibly medicinal product. So it can be used every day. to avoid inflammation, general antioxidant supplement, but it's going to be absolutely, in my opinion, necessary for any senior animals dealing with inflammation, wide variety of, inflammatory uh, disease conditions, pancreatitis, liver issues, kidney issues. For those ketogenic dogs on a ketogenic diet, great as well. In dealing with cancer and things like that. So really excited to see that because we take the whole root with the skin, everything, and grind that up and ferment it for 7 days. And the advantage to that is instead of cooking it to process the starches and sugars, the bacteria are going to eat the starches and sugars. So you can keep it in raw food state while processing those out. So that's really cool as well. Really proud of the wild ferment on that product. And the other part about that too is that those bacteria also eat or start to process the antioxidants. So when your pet or you would eat turmeric, you process that into metabolites so your body can actually use it. And in this case, the bacteria do that for you, which makes it easier to absorb in a shorter amount of time. So while you can use, for instance, black pepper to sort of initiate a longer digestive process, we chose to go in a different direction because we know that some animals are sensitive to black pepper, and there are some negatives to using that as well. So we use fermentation so we can present this to more animals because, again, our goal here is to provide products for not only healthy animals, but obviously sensitive animals as well, which, what would be why we released the goat's milk the way we did, to be able to do that. And so we are super excited about these products. They're finally hitting the shelves. By the way, if you are watching this and you get these products, feel free to tag us on social media, because one of the really exciting parts about product development and getting them out into the market is seeing people buy them and be really happy about it. So we do appreciate that more than in terms of, those tags and that kind of stuff as well. So let me go down to the questions here. So hi to Beth from Illinois. And Beth says, bring on Huckleberry. Well, he's now chewing on something over there, so I don't want to disturb him, but we'll see what happens. Hi, Jody from Minnesota, and Marianne from New Jersey. Yes, I know it's right around here, but I believe it's hi to Lisa. Marianne says, have you posted on the website about fermenting the goat's milk? We have. So if you actually go to our website and click on the raw goat's milk section, there is a video, and I break down the different ways to ferment our milk, which we've started to get feedback from people, and obviously we do a lot of testing going into that. I did a lot of different probiotics and different kefirs and yogurts and things like that. So we knew it was going to work out, but it's really cool. We've been starting to hear back from people about their own fermenting and that kind of stuff. And keep in mind, the fermentation on that is really, really easy. It takes about 10 seconds, and then you just have to let it sit for, 12 to 24 hours. I'd probably recommend the 24 hours on that, right there on the counter. And that's pretty much the whole process. So the coolest part about that is you're getting, this keeps clicking up here, so I know you don't need to know that, but if I keep pausing, it's because of that. So the coolest thing about that is it's such an easy process, and then you can go ahead and sort of cater to your own specific animal. One of the things I really I find every year you learn all these new things about nutrition. One of the things I really want to focus on, I think, moving forward is that different diets work for different animals. And what I mean by that is, we kind of get into these dogmatic themes of, dogs need this fat to protein ratio, and they need this and they need that. But every dog and cat is so different. And it's the same thing as, humans, in my opinion. We're working with a different set of nutrients because dogs and cats are carnivores. But within that framework, I think we need to allow ourselves the ability to think like, what works for my dog might not work for this dog. And, I would say that's definitely true. And as the analogy I always use is in regards to human diet is me and Kelly. So we're both consider ourselves very health conscious about what we put into our bodies, and our diets are completely different from one another. So where she eats a lot more plants than I do, and that is a horn that he's chewing on. So where she eats a lot more plants than I do, I eat a lot more raw animal products than she does, which is what works best for me and what works best for her. So I think we need to be able to kind of connect that with dogs and cats, and especially when it comes to their bacteria as well, and what gut bacteria works to getting them in the best position to be able to do that. And that's what the greatest thing, one of the greatest things about our milk is the fact that we can you can cater it specifically to your animal, or there's a section in there about making it lactose free as well for those really sensitive animals to be able to do that. So basically, we put the cornerstone of the best sourcing in the industry. Our milk, is certified for human consumption, so it goes through all the testing it needs to be on a human grocery store shelf here in Pennsylvania, and also. The soil here in Pennsylvania is really amazing as well, which gets, directly transferred into the nutrient profile of the milk. So the cornerstone of our product is really the best ethical sourcing. And by the way, if you're watching this, we are going to have some features on social media on Friday because I'm doing some farm inspecting and meeting with some of the farmers of our farms that we use here. So check out our Instagram stories on Friday. One of the best parts about my job is being able to work with farmers and work with farmers directly. And so another cool thing is that milk is bottled about 5 minutes from my house, so it's really easy for me to pop in there and have a great relationship with the people who run that as well. So don't really know how I got off on this milk tangent, but here we are in order to do that. So Christine said she's waiting patiently or not for these to hit her local retail freezers. They should be hitting everywhere. They hit some places this week, and then they should be hitting the other places, I believe, next week. So we were planning on releasing them with the milk, but they were actually more popular than we thought, which I guess is a better problem to have. But I know you guys don't like waiting, so we do like to get that stuff out as soon as possible. And we appreciate you being excited about our products. So that is pretty awesome. So Suki, this is a great question. Because I think this is kind of one of those red flag ingredients that people talk about. So she says, can you explain the difference between beet pulp and food, like kibble products and the beets and BAM? So yeah, beet pulp is a byproduct ingredient. So most things so if you have the, I don't want to say privilege, but if you have, so I go to AFCO meetings, and at these meetings, they have a book called The Official Publication, which is a large book of things that can go into pet food. And so most of those things are ingredients that are byproducts of other industries, because pet food itself, by and large, is really just there to recycle, and I'm talking about large pet food companies, recycle ingredients from other industries into pet food. Now, I know this is true because I've been there, and they literally call it recycling. So beet pulp is a byproduct from another industry where they use the beets for other things, and then they're using that sort of as a filler starch sort of processed ingredient to be able to do that. The Beets and BAM's beets are organic beets that come from Pennsylvania, that come from a farm co-op here in Lancaster where I live. And it's the entire beet itself, and then obviously we're fermenting that, which is that raw sort of natural processing step. So you're getting the entire beet. You're getting all those vitamins, minerals, all those antioxidants, and again, you're reducing the sugar essentially down to nothing or a negligible amount. So it couldn't be more different in that way. Like you could say it couldn't be more different than like chicken byproduct from that might be in processed food. versus, the chicken that might go into a raw diet or something like that. So that would be a good comparison as well. But if you have a retail store, that's a great thing to educate on because, that's the kind of thing that we're up against a lot is as a small natural company. Speaking of AFCO, by the way, AFCO, I have an event coming up. If you are in Columbia, Missouri at 6 p.m. on Friday, August 5th, me and a friend of mine, Dr. Kathy Alanovi, who runs a great organization that we're a part of called Next Generation Pet Food Manufacturers, will be doing some lectures at Lizzie and Rocco's, some of my favorite stores from some of my favorite people. And again, that was Friday, August 5th at 6 p.m. at Lizzie and Rocco's if you're in Columbia, Missouri or close to there, because we will be at the AFCO meeting in St. Louis. So check us out. And also, if you're in that area, just shop there because those are amazing stores. So just throwing that out. Marianne says, I like Huckleberry's bowl with all the green Juju items. I'm sure everything was precisely measured too. No plops. Yes, actually they were, well, somewhat. I sort of plop the blends. So if you're talking about the most recent one, I was using the golden blend. But I definitely do precise amounts of our new product. So Huckleberry gets a teaspoon per day, so half a teaspoon per meal of our of Lua's golden paste, and 2 teaspoons or a teaspoon per meal of Bam's Beets every single day. And so that is probably what you're talking about. So Kelly, Marion, the owner, is a huge advocate for plopping. I'm like 75% there with plopping because I love the idea that it's just food and that you can't really over or underdo it. It just depends on what your animal works for your dog or your cat. But I also have to give Kelly crap to some degree, so I'll never probably fully be on the plop team plop as well. So just throwing that out there as well. Catherine wants to see Huckleberry. We will have a Huckleberry appearance. He's very patiently chewing his horn down there, so it's too cute to interrupt him at this point. So Suki, great question again. Would this be okay to give to animals with cancer? Both of them would be great. Again, you're reducing the sugar, so but that comes in with a lot of stuff. So that's also, our green blends are also very low in sugar and very high in antioxidants and high in those healthy fats, those medium chain fatty acids. And so those would be great as well. And both of our new products as well, because they're both fermented, for long enough to really reduce the sugars down to nothing. And then also, they're great in terms of the Bam's Beets, even when it comes to those antioxidants you want to introduce to the diet as well, and also just great for general nutrition because you want to make sure they're getting the correct, a lot. I shouldn't say the correct because I was just going on about, every diet's different, but you want to make sure that they're getting a lot of different vitamins and minerals, vitamin precursors from a lot of different sources. So, and the turmeric as well, you're going to be in the very low sugar part. And then that's going to be great as an anti-inflammatory and an antioxidant. So that's going to also be very, very applicable as well. So, and so yeah, check that out for that. So Beth says, which one is better for liver? So I think that they both have their own merits. So if you're dealing with sort of inflammation and inflammatory, they're both going to help to some degree with that, but you're going to, the golden paste is going to be better at, reducing that inflammation, but then also you have the liver detoxifying aspect of the beets as well. So if you're dealing with and the coolest part about these is they're just food. So it's not like you're risking anything by using these, with these really health issues. But so I would use both actually if you're dealing with like a liver issue, like elevated liver enzymes or something like that. I would use both. So it just depends. So how much does the sugar content decrease in BAM's beets after fermenting? I would say down to 0 or negligible. So you can't say that there's no sugar in it 100% of the time because it's a very natural process and you just get sort of, slightly different results every time you do it, just like with the bacteria. But I would say negligible to the point where it's not really going to, affect dogs that would be sensitive to, sugar, or you're on a diet that is, would be affected by that. So hopefully that answers your question. Tracy says, I hope Benson's in upstate New York will carry it. I agree. I hope every store watching this will carry it. But that we always want as many stores to carry it as possible. So, Marianne, you're in PA. Sorry, for some reason I thought you were in. Beth says, the first bottle I fermented bulged. The second bottle did nothing. So did they both ferment differently? Yes. You will get, so when you ferment the milk, you will get different, so bacteria, while we know that the good bacteria are going to grow, it's different bacteria every time you're doing it. So it really just depends. A good example of that would be, I do different ferments on Green Juju's goat milk all the time. And I did one with a brand of Saccharomyces yeast that I've been experimenting with. It's a single strain, and I just did a ferment yesterday, and it was really thin, but it had a yeasty smell to it, so I knew that those bacteria proliferated, but it didn't really get thick, and that's good. You want, variety when it comes to fermentation as well. So both of those would be very healthy and both fermented, but you just get different results. If you're looking for it to thicken each time, it does help if you take, so let's say you used, the Adored Beast probiotic to ferment it. It does help if you use the probiotic the first time, and in the second batch, you use some of the last batch to inoculate the next batch, and then you keep doing that. Typically, I find that it does thicken up over time, but I will also tell you that goat ferments are typically thinner than cow ferments. So when you ferment it, it's not going to get super, super thick probably, but that's okay. Those bacteria are still growing and are still going to be healthy. The other part too is like when you buy yogurt from like the grocery store, the thickness in that is mostly from the cooking because the proteins gel together. So you're not going to get it that thick. I've gotten some really thick ones in the past, but kind of takes some finagling there. So, but still not as thick as the ones I just mentioned. So, Kristen's dogs and cats love the Green Juju goat milk. That's amazing. And Suki, thank you for noting that you did ferment the milk and your pets loved it. So that's awesome. If you have fermented our milk, go ahead and tell me what you fermented it with and how it worked out for you, because we love feedback on anything like that as well. So a couple things because I already talked about some of the event coming up at Lithium Rocco's, would like to just shout out to a couple other things that are happening in August. On Saturday, August 13th, I'll be at the All Pets Considered anniversary event with Judy Morgan. So very excited, not only because I love the people at All Pets Considered, but I also love Judy Morgan, and always excited when I get to hang out with her and her wonderful husband, Hugh Grant, who I have to mention every time. And also on August 15th, I'll be doing a Q&A at the Nautical Dog in Williamsburg, Virginia. Always love hanging out with the staff there. Always have an awesome base of customers that come out for events. So if you're at any of those stores, come and hang out. And also, if you're a retailer watching this and you will be at Super Zoo, I will be at Super Zoo as well. We do not have a booth, but I will be there walking around, and we do have some goodies and whatnot if you come and find me. So if you'd like a meeting at Super Zoo, feel free to email us at info@Green Juju, or you can email me at william@greenjuju.com. and we can set up a meeting. But we will have some cool stuff going on with Super Zoo as well. So very excited to get back out there and see your faces again. And if you're a store watching this and you're ever interested in having me for an event, I can't always do all the events, but it never hurts to email and find out, or maybe I'll be in your area at a certain point. Um, so reach out to me. So Tracy says, you were awesome at the Healthy Dog Expo. Thank you. I had a great time there. Looks like they have some really cool speakers in 2023 as well. I've spoken there a few times, so that was really fun for me, and always great to see everyone. So Kim is waiting somewhat patiently for Bam's Beets and Louis Golden Paste near Atlanta. The goat milk is amazing. All three love it. My IBD guy has the best poops ever. That is so great to hear. We love that kind of feedback. Raw milk is just so great for animals with digestive issues. And so, and shout out, by the way, to the adorable packaging as well for the goat milk. So just side note on that, but I always love to hear that. And you should be getting that stuff soon in Atlanta. So we're very excited for that as well. I was just in your city recently training our distributor there southeast. So Marilyn is late. Well, Marilyn, this is just a nice basic reminder that you can see all of our lives and everything you missed on our YouTube channel. So shameless plug, go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can always be notified when all of these are posted. So Lizzie says, we love Louis Golden Paste, but I'm having a bit of trouble with the packaging. The consistency as I'm pouring it out sometimes is all liquid, or other times the meaty parts. Not sure if that matters much in terms of what my dogs are getting in each meal. Also noticing that a lot is getting stuck at the top of the package, so it will likely end up cutting it open to get at it later. Any thoughts on some slightly different packaging? You are welcome. We are always interested in hearing feedback on everything. So you will get differing consistencies because this is whole food. I did work, with the facility specifically on the consistency for both of these. I've been really happy with it. So sometimes there may be a little bit more liquid versus, that part of it. So one of the reasons we actually chose the packaging we did with the spout on top of that is turmeric can be very staining to certain things. So, we want, rather than have people reaching into something, we wanted to be able to have it so you could kind of do that. Now, it's less about pouring it and more about squeezing it out, like almost to some degree, like toothpaste in some cases. So that's something. But also, if you're having a ton of trouble with it, there's no shame in cutting off the top and putting it, and scooping it out as well. So, and there's a whole wide variety of things you can do, from keeping it in the packaging or putting it into a little container if you'd rather scoop it in the fridge. It really just depends on how you want to do that. But that is great feedback. But just so you know, there's no shame in obviously, cutting off the top and doing it that way as well. So typically when it comes to packaging, there's really no perfect solution. There's always the good and the bad. And also as time goes on, we'll also, keep sort of finagling that consistency as well, as that happens. So thank you so much for the feedback. And we're also, I'm also really glad that you love the product as well. So, Doreen says, I live in Columbia, Missouri and shop at Lizzie and Rocco's. So that is great. Hopefully, Doreen, we see you. Hopefully, I see you at the event. You definitely want to come out to hear Dr. Kathy speak because she's an expert on the pet food industry and regulation and how that works. And so she's going to tell you a lot of interesting things, and you're going to feel a lot better about feeding, our products and natural products versus a lot of the stuff that's on the market there. to be able to do that. So Kelly says plop, all caps plop. Christine plop, so she's on your team, Kelly. Um, I got myself a water and then didn't bring it in here. That's typical dad brain. So just trying to get the baby out the door as well. Side note, I know you're all very interested in that. Um, Lorraine says, how long can the greens be in the refrigerator? The um, so just greens and golden blend um, is going to be a week in the fridge. Whereas the Bailey's blend is going to be a total of 22 days because it will ferment itself as it sits in the fridge. So with the other two, you're getting fresh food and not fermented food, which would be the average lifespan of a product in the fridge, where in the Bailey's blend, you're going to get longer. So it just depends how you want to do that. Suki says, blends and beets for cats. The broth and milk are so good for them. Yes, our broth is amazing. Just, stop, full stop. Our broth is amazing for cats as well. And so is our raw goat's milk. So the other cool thing about our goat's milk as well is it's in its pure form. And some cats don't really care for fermentation as it doesn't have a more intense flavor. So really good to try our goat's milk for your cats as well. And the beets and the turmeric would also be good for cats, especially because of the non-sugar content. They will have a little bit of a stronger flavor, so it really just depends on mixing it into their food and what they'll actually eat and that kind of thing as well. So it really just, and I think, both of these products, it just depends. My dog will eat them just straight up, but with some dogs and some cats, you might have to put it in the food. If you're feeding a raw diet, a really good way to do that is just put it in the middle of the food, that sort of thing. Or so you can kind of go from there and just, I'm not going to try to figure out exactly what a cat will eat because that's, tough. And so if you're looking for a good explanation of our packaging on that, on our new products, there is a comment from Green Juju on here, from our customer service team at Green Juju. So check that out as well. So it looks like Beth used Phytos Flora both times. So if you go to the goat milk video on our website, again, go to the website and click on raw goat's milk and go to the video there. We do give the amounts for all of the Adored Beast products because they make wonderful, wonderful probiotic products. And really, that was kind of part of the whole inspiration behind this, fermenting yourself thing in general, because I think it was last December. I remember thinking to myself, "Oh, it'd be really interesting to make a canine-specific fermented dairy, beverage with the Phytos Flora, which has the canine-specific strains in it." And I texted Julianne Lee and started being like, "Oh, I'm doing this," and started to experiment. And we, figured out that it was working really well. And so that's kind of where that all started. So that's kind of why we did that. And looks like someone else used Love Bugs from Adored Beast, which is another really, really great option. And we obviously tested all those out as well. So thank you for doing that. Judy says, can't wait for the Lewis turmeric to reach our store. You guys have no idea how happy it makes me that people have to say her name every time they talk about the products. So very excited about that. How many days is milk good for after fermentation? I have a customer with bad poop, combo of milk and blank or question coming off of kibbles. The problem with if a dog has like diarrhea or something is it's really hard to figure out what the cause is of that thing. So people have a tendency to think like, oh, I added this. I've been feeding, these treats and this food and this for a long time, and started adding this thing, and then a week later, there's an issue there. But when you're looking at like from a true food safety, you know, like perspective, or you're looking from like, hey, let's try to figure this out, you have to think to yourself, it could actually be any one of those things. Just because you fed something in the past doesn't mean that that particular batch wasn't different in a way, or whatever it might be. Doesn't mean it isn't environmental. So as long as, I would encourage people, if your dog has a weird stool, it's not really an indication that you should stop doing something. And unless it's like, they're becoming lethargic and, it's watery diarrhea or something like that, it's a different story. But if they have a little bit of diarrhea or something like that, I would just, the one thing you could do is you could, scale back and then work up to it a little bit more, if you want to try something new. But usually the issue, you know, will take care of itself over time. So it just depends. So it'd be really hard to figure out exactly why the customer's Frenchie had an issue. But it's sort of like on the food safety end. People have a tendency to think like, my dog got sick and I tried this new product, so therefore it's this new product. But that isn't the case necessarily. It could have been anything that the dog eats really equally. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Beth says, I poured bone broth in mine to get the rest out. Hey, that's a good idea. What a cool idea. So Beth was using Lua's golden paste and wanted to get, there was some residual in the pot, so she poured a little bone broth, probably shook it up, and then got it in there. So that's an interesting thing. So that is super cool. Thanks, Beth, for the great idea. All right. Doreen's coming to my event and she's Team Plop. So I don't know how to feel about that. That's like one really good thing and then one Kelly thing. No, I'm just kidding. Team Plop is amazing. Throwing that out there. Lily says, what is the thought on powdered goat milk? Well, I like, for me, I understand, we have a wonderful line of freeze-dried treats. We also have an amazing freeze-dried version of our Just Greens with, great, with nettles for, great at helping, allergies and itching and things like that. And so convenience is definitely a thing. And one of the reasons I wanted to join Green Juju was because I wanted to start working with some of those, freeze-dried products, or where you take the moisture out in general, because, there are animals that eat those exclusively, and we want to help those animals as well. And I like a new challenge as well. But so those things have amazing value. I mean, our treats are the best treats on the market. The quality, the innovation, which, with Kelly mixing organ meat with those different color types of antioxidants, just brilliant stuff. When it comes to milk and things that are mostly moisture, I like to keep the moisture in it. So powdered milk is going to be much, much different than raw, moisture present milk. So I would prefer for my own animal, and also for, animals out there, that they would be using our raw milk in its whole state, because milk is actually also a very fragile food. So we don't really want to do that. So, and it's also a little bit different too when you freeze dry, say, meat, because there's a lot more to it than when you would powder something that's mostly liquid, because milk is like, above 90% moisture. So hopefully that helps. What do you recommend for joint support for dogs? I recommend with our products, I would highly recommend our bone broth. That's going to contain all of the things that are needed pretty much to rebuild and sustain joints. So you're talking about collagen, glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, all those wonderful things as well. And obviously bone broth is like multifaceted as well. It doesn't just have the joint benefit, as a lot of other benefits as well. And now you can pair that with our with Lewis fermented golden paste. So that's gonna also help reduce inflammation. It's going to, help ease pain, those sorts of things. Um, so those two things can kind of work together. So I'd highly recommend using our bone broth at least double the amount. So the normal recommended dose on the packaging is 1 ounce per 10 pounds. I would recommend doing 2 ounces per 10 pounds every day. And then I would recommend also our golden paste for sure for reducing that inflammation and helping with pain as well. How long does the fermented goat milk last in the refrigerator? About 30 days after it's fermented. So usually you'll use it before then, but that's a pretty good rule of thumb there. Anne says, my dog is doing all her old tricks for the freeze-dried treat. She is getting younger since feeling better. That's amazing. Because not only are those treats highly palatable, I would highly encourage all of you cat owners out there to look into the treats. They're very, very palatable, even for dogs and cats that typically don't like treats. And it's an amazing way to get more organ meat into your dog or cat's diet. My opinion, most dogs and cats, even if they're fed raw diets, don't have enough organ meat in their diet. This is a great way to introduce more organ meat as well. So, and Beth says that her cat can hear her opening the green Juju treats from the opposite end of the house. So palatability is really great on those. And also, pairing that with the fact that they're insanely healthy. Very proud of that as well. Um, Lily says, what about deer antler velvet for joints? I don't know much about that, to be honest with you. So I think a good person to contact would be Judy Morgan and their team because I think they have a lot of experience with that. But I won't ever BS you. If I don't know about something, I'm not going to say I do. So I've heard good things about deer antler velvet, but I don't know. So with that, guys, I think we're going to call it. Oh, we have one more. I'm going to take one more question. Then I have to feed my dog because it's almost 8 p.m. and he has not had dinner. So everyone should feel really bad for Huckleberry. Suki was wondering about omega-3s as well. Yeah, omega-3s are great for for basically you want to make sure your dog or cat's diet has a certain omega-3 to 6 ratio. So you can do that by feeding foods that are naturally raised. So, chickens that are, out on pasture, grass-fed beef, you know, uh, grass-fed bison, all these things are going to have omega-3 to 6 ratios that are natural. So like when I build my dog's diet, I do very little um, supplementation when it comes to omega-3s because most of those I can calculate out what he's getting from his actual food. Here's another cool thing about omega-3s. Milk has a natural 1-to-1 omega-3 to 6 ratio. So if you're listening to this and you feed our goat's milk has 28 milligrams of omega-3 per ounce. And you may be thinking to yourself, that's not that much, but Huckleberry gets 8 ounces of milk a day, and that's 224 milligrams of omega-3. Um, so that's actually a pretty significant amount. So there you go. So with any animal dealing with joint issues or just total body health, you want to make sure your dog's omega-3 to 6 ratio is within the correct range, and then you're not going to be feeding an inflammatory diet. And basically, there's some debate on that, but I like to keep it anywhere from 1 part omega-3 to 4 parts omega-6 and lower. That's basically what I try to do. My dog's diet is like basically a 1-to-1 omega-3 to 6 ratio. And so hopefully that helps. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. It is truly I want to make sure I can see myself here so I don't look like an idiot. Okay, cool. So it is truly our pleasure and our privilege that you guys feed our products and that we're here every month to do these lives. Sometimes me and Kelly, so you can have a face to know why we make all of our products. So we're always happy to answer questions. We're always here to talk about the why we make products, because a lot of times you're just buying a product and it's kind of a faceless thing, and you don't know why they're making the products. But we're here to always be transparent about that. So thank you guys for tuning in. It really means a lot to me personally that you guys want to know more about our products and nutrition. So we'll be here next month, and if you're happen to make it out to any of those events that I mentioned, come say hi, because I love to meet new people. So everybody have a good night, and we will see you soon.